really wanted to do biomedical engineering when I was in Iran, but I did electrical.
Right.
When I was here, I never thought that I can get into healthcare anymore because I thought the opportunity is gone.
Right, even when I was starting a business, I was like, should I really go through that H-1B visa or apply for EB-1? But I want to do something quickly.
I actually started robotics when I was in high school, which is quite not a normal thing that everybody does.
There's extra layer of challenges when you do a bio company, right? Because beneficiary are always human. So there's safety data, efficacy data,
absolutely,
regulatory approval, and you cannot generate revenue for so long.
Founders that are female entrepreneurs and their investors are really happy, and now they're investing more in women, unconsciously. We went on inside the operating rooms where surgical procedures on people who are having this problem of pelvic organ prolapse was happening.
If you had to bet your entire career on one trend in medtech, biotech, what would it be?
Personalized medicine using AI.
You expect like robots making drugs?
Yeah.
What's going on? I hope it's not targeted to me. In this podcast, I'm going to speak with Negin Ashouri. She is the founder of FemTherapeutics. My goal is to understand how do you build a biotech business from scratch and what type of challenges you can expect to face. How do you solve them? How do you scale the business and everything behind the scene building a biotech startup?
Quite close, like 10 minutes driving, 7 minutes drive.
I see. Is it like a new building? I thought you had...
It's a new not building, but like a new office for us, but it seems to be new as well. I don't know, I think they renovated. Probably they made it a couple of, I think it looks old from the outside, so I don't know how old it is, but it's completely renovated inside. And we just went there from Saint Laurent Street. Which was like a really big building to a 5 floors apartment, which is quite nice though. Yeah, so we actually moved there in the beginning of November. So quite nice and new for us, right in the middle of downtown, which is great.
No, totally. I'm working from downtown these days too.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Where are you based?
It's I don't know how to even pronounce it. It's Robert Borusa.
Oh, yes.
And Rinus something.
Yeah.
It's like a... so the place where I'm living is connected with the place I'm working from.
Got it.
The building is connected with the train station.
Everywhere, yeah. I think where you are, it's actually connected underground to everywhere.
Yes, so I love it.
It's amazing.
No, Montreal is awesome. I when I go to Kitchener, I'm like, what am I doing here?
I'm glad to hear that you like Montreal.
Yeah, I mean, Kitchener, it's not like typical university town.
Right.
Because there's University of Waterloo.
Yeah.
I think it's a good place for retirement. So, yeah.
How long do you want the episode to last?
90 minutes, so
90
we will see how it goes.
Do you need a timer? I could put a timer on the shelf.
Sure.
Right there,
Yeah.
So you'll see how long we're...
Let's do it.
All right. And you can just be a little bit closer to the table. Yeah,
like
that's
that?
perfect.
Okay.
So what I generally do is I start chatting. So there's no official start.
Yeah.
Because otherwise if you say...
It doesn't feel...
Yeah, as soon as you say recording started, then people are like, oh.
Yeah, intense and yeah.
Yeah, we're tell me more about, if you can introduce yourself a little bit. Don't worry about the camera.
Yeah, of course.
So what is a little bit about you? How long you have been running this business? What is your story?
Yeah, of course. So if I want to go back, really back. So my name is Negin, for sure. It's Negin Ashouri. I am, my nationality is an Iranian. So I come from Iran originally. So I immigrated to Canada to study in 2018. And before that, I actually started robotics when I was in high school, which is quite not a normal thing that everybody does. It's just, I got lucky. I got into the path of getting into robotics, soccer simulation. We were a team of for girls actually. So in Iran it's kind of like separated. So boys go to like their specific designated schools. Girls do the same. So
Whole Iran?
yeah,
Huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That is crazy. Now you know more why people are all
Leaving.
irritated with all the situation there. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we actually created. It wasn't part of the school. I would say it's kind of like was an extracurricular activity that we did. And then we started. We didn't know where we were going, but then we lasted for 3 years. The classes that we started, it was like about 16 classes of like 30 people in there. And then after a couple of years, we were the only team that lasted. So we went into like international competitions. We went to like World Cup of like robotics. That was really cool.
Wow.
Like we felt really special at that age. It was really cool. Then we got introduced to other people. Then when we went to like better competitions or like multinational ones, then we were working with boys as well. And then it was quite cool. It was mostly software. And then when I went to university, I still wanted to do software, but then I was like this perfectionist, quote unquote, that I like in Iran, it was like, if you want to do engineering, you have to do electrical engineering, which is kind of the best of engineering. So that's just like, stereotypes that I didn't like, but my perfectionist mind really pushed me to it. So I did electrical engineering. But on the side, I really wanted to get into software. So I did a lot of, courses on like Linux and computer networks, like, the Microsoft courses, etc. So artificial intelligence, that was for master's students there, but I got it as an elective, and then graduated my bachelor's from electrical engineering. Did a couple of, things in industry, but then I wanted to, like, I knew that I want to leave like to a foreign country just to study more, like be in a better, like in a developed country to, learn more about technology. So, but it's a quite nice story, interesting story. Yes, I applied to the United States. I didn't want to come to Canada. I guess that's the story of many people, but I was like, again, like out in the United States, it'd be the best. I'm going to be honest here, but I thought like Canada is not as good as United States. So I applied with my partner, like we both applied, and then we got selected and we got admissions, and then we even got, scholarships, etc. And then I think it was 2017, if I'm not mistaken, but President Trump came, and then the travel ban. Yeah. And then my cousin was there, and then they were like, don't come, we are even leaving, don't think of coming. And then we're like, oh God, what are we supposed to do now, right? So what happened was Canada actually opened and extended their, deadlines for applications, because it was already gone, right? Like it was, I think it was in January or so. I don't remember the time, but I think that was the time frame. And we were supposed to start next September, something like that. And then we were like, everything is closed. How are we supposed to do it? And then Canada opened their deadlines, like the universities, like, extended their deadlines. And then we applied. We came here with no scholarships because we couldn't find any university, scholarships or master. Like as a master's student, you should actually have a supervisor to supervise you and give you the money, right? I couldn't find any. I'm not gonna bore you with all the visa stuff that I had to wait for. It was supposed to come in a month. We were waiting 6 months for it.
Wow.
And then we actually had to go to Turkey because because it was like, we don't have an embassy in Iran.
Like Canadian embassies?
At all.
Huh. I thought it was just US.
No, it's Canada as well. And another time maybe I can give you the story behind it as well. But no embassy. So we had to go to Turkey to do our biometrics, come back, etc. But then at the end of the day, our passports had to be with them. So we decided if you're there, it would be easier for us to come. Long story short, I had to defer for 2 semesters because our visa wasn't there. And at the end, we arrived in March 2018, finally. And then I took like 2 months to going door to door to find a professor and a supervisor because we only had $2,000. Me and my partner together, we had like no money basically, and we couldn't. And I had to pay like $30,000 for my master's study if I wanted to study. So it was
For
a
like
real
teaching assistants?
Yes,
or
it was
research?
exactly
Okay.
thesis assistant. So I wanted to change from like a course-based to a thesis-based master's. And this time I wanted to do computer science. So
Yeah.
I changed my major from electrical engineering to computer science when
But
I
it was
arrived.
master's or PhD?
It was master's.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly, master's. And then I don't know how I got so lucky 2 days before the deadline for like drop, add or drop. Like I think they call it ENE, DNE, I guess. But anyways, 2 days before, I got like a official email from the supervisor that said, I decided you're on, you can come in, like you can change to thesis. And it was like the most relieving thing I heard
Right.
at the moment. I was like working 2 jobs and like studying at the same time. And I was like, how am I supposed to do this, right? So, and that was a story behind how I got into the university and how I found my supervisor. He was really sweet. And this program that I got into was about to change my life, right? And I had no idea that's gonna happen. I generally, like inside, I really love helping people and like healthcare. I really am into it. I really wanted to do biomedical engineering when I was in Iran, but I did electrical.
Right.
Anyways, when I was here, I never thought that I can get into healthcare anymore because I thought the opportunity is gone. But then when my supervisor actually supervised me, this program that I got into was called Surgical Innovation. And it was done by McGill. So it was a joint program between McGill and Concordia Universities, Department of Medicine from McGill, Engineering Department from Concordia, and then Business Department from both McGill and Concordia. We're together also running a program that would actually teach you how to go, talk to patients, talk to doctors, go to a hospital environment, get familiar with what's happening there. To understand what you can, like how you can help others and like how you can actually bring solutions that are actually helpful for patients or surgeons. And that was actually the best, best course. Not, I can't just say it's just a course, but like generally the best thing in my academic life that ever happened to me. Like I was living my dream without me even planning for it. So it was really cool.
Love it. So President Trump is in the office. You are in Canada. Love it.
Yeah, and I'm loving it here.
Was it like really a ban, or it was more like a campaign thing?
No, well, it was actually a ban because even when I was in Canada, after we started our startups that we'll get into more, I suppose, but I applied to actually go on a tour with McGill University, and they rejected me, and they're like. It's like, and you know what? The officer said everything is okay with me. Like, that President Trump doesn't let you in. And I'm like, I'm aware. And he was like, okay, let's do the interview. And then he did the interview. He was like, all is good for, like, on my side, I'm going to apply for a waiver for you. So it has to go to, before a judge. So they can actually see. And then they asked me to write a huge letter of why I'm not a security threat to the United States. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I supposed, like, I was like, swear to God, like, what am I supposed to say? I'm like, I guess I'm not, but I just want to help, and I'm just on a tour. I have all this academia with me, like academic people that are supporting us. I'm coming from McGill University, like with them, they are like supervising us, and I wrote a lot of things discussing like why I'm not a threat, but they were not satisfied. Yeah, they didn't believe me. And but interesting thing is that after that, like when everything changed, I went to the United States more than 6-7 times, and I didn't do anything. So I guess
so you're safe.
I think I can prove now that I'm not a threat.
Yeah, hey, so I've been there 3 times. Didn't do anything. This video is sponsored by SciSpot. SciSpot is the best data infrastructure for life science labs. It turns these labs into an AI powerhouse. No, I think that's something about the US, right? So I lived in the US about a decade. And there's always some fear, as if you committed something, right?
Yeah.
Even if you are following everything. And
Yeah, no, for sure.
with foreign passport, it's as soon as you enter the country, there is some
Yeah,
the way they
absolutely.
talk to you and everything is
You know what I see, like, I completely understand though, like,
Yeah.
even now, like, when President Trump is back into the office, I suppose I'm not as sad as everybody expects me to be, to be honest with you, because I completely understand, the concern. Like, I see Iran's government, and that's why we really, like, say, like, we are really different than the government, but I completely understand if you like, as a government of the United States, you're
Right.
really afraid
You
of
wanna
the
be
government of
careful.
Iran. Like, I completely understand that, right? Like, we, even as people of Iran, as citizens, are absolutely afraid and scared. Like, why
Totally.
shouldn't you be, But I guess it's just like, as long as I'm providing all the evidence and information, I think it should be evident that I'm not a threat, But yeah,
Totally.
it was a little bit annoying. And to be honest with you, I think back in the day, if we just applied for like, as a study, like, they don't have the study permit, it's like a different, they call it a different thing, but for the study permit, we might have gotten in, because we had a lot of friends that wanted to study, and they were like, okay, so this is an exception, but it would have taken a long time as well.
Right.
And then you're hearing from my cousin that it's not really ideal either, so we're
Right.
like, let's move to Canada.
Yeah, no, I have something similar experience, but I also understand it's a $30 trillion economy, so you want to be selective who you want to
Of course.
accept to the country, but sometime it goes wrong, right? Even when I was starting a business, I was like, should I really go through that H-1B visa or
Yeah,
apply for
exactly.
EB-1? But I want to do something quickly. I just applied for Canada. They accepted this right away. And
Interesting.
so yeah, I mean, we still do most of our business in the US.
As well, yeah.
But I
I guess the
think
market is there.
market is there. It's a
course.
massive market.
Yeah, nobody in Canada will stay in Canada. Like, even like when you talk to other businesses, money is not in Canada, unfortunately, but money is not in Canada. Like, even if you are able to raise up to like Series A, even B, like, there's not much. Like, you can't go further. Like, from A to B, like, businesses just go to the US, they raise funds, they establish there, they go to the market, they like, they grow, and then if they're really willing to come back to Canada, they do, right?
But it can be a good thing too, in a way, because doing R&D is really cheap in Canada. People don't understand.
Absolutely.
Right? Salaries are almost 40% less what you would pay, let's say, in the Bay Area.
Absolutely.
Plus the currency difference, it's like
Completely right.
1 to 1.4,
exactly.
1.42.
Yep.
So it's basically you're paying half
of course,
for similar quality of talent. So I think to build the company, Canada is still an amazing place.
Yeah. Government funding as well.
Government
right?
funding.
There's not much in US, like, at all.
Yeah, I mean, there is like NIH.
NIH,
grants,
or
but
like, we had ARPA-H as well. Like, it depends on like if they announce something new or like a new fund. But
right.
It's not as readily available as
Right.
it is in Canada, right?
Yeah. No, I think Canada government grants are awesome. It
I
does.
don't want to brag, but Quebec seems to be a really good government for that as well.
Maybe I should move from Ontario.
Maybe you should. Well, anytime that I'm in Ontario, my fellow founders are like, "Oh my God, you're so lucky to be in Quebec." But they're also really frustrated as well. I'm like, I didn't do anything about it, right? Like, they were like, government is giving you all this money, and like, for like, we have nothing. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but I'm glad for the opportunities that I had,
right?
As well. As a part of being part of Quebec.
Totally. I think Quebec as a province, even it feels rich. I'm not sure because the way the province negotiated with the federal government, it's an amazing deal for
Quebec, for sure.
Right. So
I think that's why other provinces are so mad as well.
No, I whenever I come to Montreal, I really enjoy. People are warmer, arguably. I mean, the whole Canada people are nice.
Oh,
But
they are.
yeah,
Absolutely.
but Quebec people are very nice. They don't expect me to speak French. I barely speak English. Yeah. They,
Same here, right?
yeah, they look at me, they start speaking in English. They're like, yeah, this guy, if he can talk in English, we are lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, of course. Like I've been living here for 7 years now. I started learning French, and it's like, learning a new language when you're not that young, like, when you're not a child, it's harder, right?
Yes.
And as a language, it's not easy to remember everything if you're not practicing all the time.
Yeah.
So I tried, and I'm still trying. I'm still learning, but we'll see. But they have been really nice, to be honest with you. Some people come to Quebec and they say, you know what, it's like people are racist, or like they've been treating us really bad because we don't know how to speak French. Honestly, it has not been my experience. Like
Neither.
as a person, like
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel ashamed that I can't speak French when there's like a group of people that are speaking French, and I feel bad if they have to switch because
Right.
of me,
Right.
But they never told me that, oh, why you're not talking French, or like you absolutely have to,
Yeah.
It's which is really nice.
No,
Which
totally.
actually encourages you to learn more. While when the government does this restrictive rules of like you are banned from Quebec if you can't speak French.
Right.
To be honest with you, one time I was so frustrated, I stopped learning French. I was like, just to go against the government, I'm stopping learning French, because I'm like, if you push too hard, it's
Totally.
gonna backfire, right?
You have to win by kindness.
Yeah, absolutely,
right? And
absolutely.
I think people here are, I mean, like French is a very sweet language too.
It is. I love it.
I lived in Germany, great language too. Great rap music. But I never felt like learning more than few words. Dankeschön, bitteschön, But I think French, after spending quite a bit of time in Montreal,
Right.
even I feel like, but I'm not sure if my Indian accent will come into play when because tongue movement is
It's difficult. I've seen.
How you roll your R, and I don't know, it's like there are like 3-4 things. And French is also a richer language. You speak with throat, and
Right.
like English is more
Mouth.
and
mouth
and active tongue, and
Yeah, you're right.
so
You're right.
very interesting language.
Yeah.
So what exactly FemTherapeutic does? So like, you talked about your experience, some exposure to healthcare. So what exactly is FemTherapeutics? What is the technology? What is the desired outcome here?
Of course. So maybe I again take a step back and like how we actually created it, because I think it's also important. So when we started the surgical innovation program that I just mentioned to you, it's kind of a replica of the biodesign program, if you're familiar with it. It's biodesign is a program at Stanford, which brings like people with different, multidisciplinary students, especially grad students, together just to go and experience operating rooms and understand what's happening. Similar program in University of Minnesota. Forgot the name, but I think it's the medical device innovation has something to do with it as well. So anyways, we were in a gynecology group, and the reason for that is that I actually had a untreated condition, untreated gynecological condition in Iran, which we have great doctors there. I'm sure India is the same as well. Like we have amazing doctors, but when it comes to women health, it's not much. Like it's still a taboo to talk about it. So even gynecologists there are not really like open to talk about what is happening to your body, how you can treat it. And anyways, I couldn't treat my problem. So when I came here, I was like, now that I can actually join a group, my first choice was robotic group, but then because it filled up so fast, my second choice was gynae, and I'm really, really happy that I did that. And that was the reason I chose it. So we went on like inside the operating rooms where surgical procedures on people who are having this problem of pelvic organ prolapse was happening. So what pelvic organ prolapse is the descent of the bladder, uterus, or rectum down the vaginal canal. Like it's really like something is bulging out. That's the feeling that women will have, and some of them cannot even walk. It drastically affects the quality of a woman's life. You can't exercise in higher stages. You can't even move. You can't lift things. It's really horrible.
It sounds like in men there's condition called hernia.
Yes, so hernia happens to women as well. It's just depends. So, and one thing that I wanted to say as well is that when usually, for example, rectum comes out of, it's associated, I would say, vein, or like how do I say it? Like it's hernia usually, right? But when it comes out of the vaginal canal, it's when you call it pelvic organ prolapse. So if the rectum comes out from the rectal cavity, right? It's a totally different problem than when it actually descends or bulge from the vaginal canal, right? So that's kind of like the difference there as well. So yeah, going back there, so we understood like this is what's happening to women. Almost all of women that were coming to surgery had the same problem, yet they were treated differently. So we gathered with our supervisor and we were like, why is it so common? And he was like, you know what, this is actually the alternative solution for women, just to get rid of their uterus. So it's a surgery called hysterectomy, or there are reconstructive surgeries like adding a mesh or a band to the pelvic organ. So you basically what you do is you tie up, like if I want to put it simply, you tie up this mesh from the uterus to the backbone. So these ligaments and fascia that it's becoming loose, you are trying to recreate it with the mesh. But unfortunately, there are lots of complications on that. There's a documentary made on Netflix called Bleeding Edge. Bleeding Edge, which like shows a woman, like how a woman actually has to do 21 surgeries to just get rid of the complications of the first one. Anyway, so we got introduced to this, and then our doctor said this is because the current solutions are failing the non-invasive solutions.
Right.
The non-invasive solutions are called a pessary. Those are intravaginal devices. You just insert it in the vaginal canal, and it's supposed to hold the organs in place. But it fails 50% of the time. And there are a couple of reasons behind it. First is not all the vaginal canals looks like a circle, while everything regarding pessaries are mass-produced, right? So it's either having circular shapes or like it's different sizes and shapes, but it doesn't consider that each woman is different as well. And like, generally how I can actually say how the vaginal canal works. So the mechanism. It took us years to actually realize that, because that's what we started with. So when we saw that, we were like, so if we actually make this current solutions better, then we potentially can prevent the surgical interventions, right? And then he said yes, and then everything is started. So what we do is that it's similar to Invisalign, we would like to say, when the patient goes to the doctor to get diagnosed with pelvic organ prolapse, get some measurements, which is currently not happening. So we actually created a tool for that.
For diagnosis as well?
For measurements, actually. So diagnosis, it's something standard, but to actually get the measurements from patients' anatomy. And then we enter it into our software. Basically, we adapt the vaginal canal model that we have built.
It's more imaging based? How does it work?
Okay, that's actually a great question.
Okay.
Our vaginal models are based on medical imaging that had been done before on like other women.
I see.
So we adapt that model to the patient measurements.
Got it.
And the reason we can't, but we cannot do any imaging and will not do any imaging on the patient body. And the reason for that is the vaginal canal is really dynamic. It actually changes shape and size when patient moves. So when you're lying down, the size and shape of your vagina is different than when you actually sit or do exercises. So those measurements are really changing. And because of this dynamicity, it's really hard to actually get an image of like ultrasound or MRI, The best imaging tool for this would have been dynamic MRI. but it's really expensive, and you need like a total different facility to actually be able to perform that in a long time. But what we are actually doing is a very simple measurement tool that the doctor actually uses their hand, and then they can just accurately measure different stage of the vaginal canal. And then we adapt the vaginal canal based on that, and then we create the pessary
Makes sense.
at the end of the...
So it's a medical device.
It is a medical device.
And why the company is called Therapeutics?
That's a great question. We actually were going through a couple of different names in the beginning that we landed on FemTherapeutics, because generally the vision is bigger, right? So we started here, but generally the vision is to actually bring therapeutics to women that actually are in need, starting with pelvic organ prolapse, but then we would like to actually broaden our audiences and clients to other problems as well. So
makes sense.
And also we are looking into how we can actually integrate like drugs as our version 2-3 to our pessary as well. Usually estrogen creams are being prescribed to patients along with the pessaries in order to make everything easier and more pleasant for the patient, the whole experience, because they have to remove the pessary every 2 weeks, wash it, insert it. It's not a pleasant thing to do for patients either. So yeah, that's about it.
No, makes sense. I think every startup has like two stories. One is the current state, right? And then there's promised land.
Absolutely.
But I like when you name the company after promised land. So it keeps you focused to keep making incremental progress.
Yeah, we hope. We hope so.
That's pretty cool. So how do you build this? Like, how do you create this medical device from scratch?
We 3D printed. We actually 3D printed.
So if you can dumb it down, like how do you build this company? So when you started, like if I start a company like that, I will have no idea.
Absolutely.
Right. So how do you do this from scratch? What exactly? Where do you have to go? We
struggled a lot because the interesting thing is if you go to this accelerators or incubators, which is the go-to for people who wants to actually start a startup, they usually tell you it would be great and it would be a success if you start from a problem rather than start from what you learned in university, or oh, this is a great technology that I know, let's apply it to something, right? If you start from the problem, it would be way more helpful, for patient at the end of the day, or not generally to people. It doesn't matter if it's a medical device or not. It's when you start from a problem, you see the problem, you want to solve that problem, right? And then you become innovative of like, what can I do? How can I solve it, etc., right? So we started from the problem, but our problem was that we knew the problem, we had no idea how to solve it.
Right.
We were two kind of like electrical engineering, software background people. Then we had 2 clinical and then 2 business. So nothing regarding biomedical engineering, no experience there, have no idea about gynecology, how to actually address this problem. And the interesting fact was that we were like, oh, you know what? This is like, it took us, I think, 6 to 9 months for us to kind of cook the idea of how it can actually work in terms of how similar this can be to, for example, Invisalign. That analogy like came out after a couple of years, and like what exactly we can do. And we kind of understood this could be a really good workflow for patients. We studied how things are being done now, and we tried to change a little bit, right? But we struggled so much because at that time we didn't know how to solve it, and there were no technical mentors. Right. So usually during this incubators or accelerators, they help you find, solutions for your business problems or financial problems, how to solve financial problems, how to do marketing, how to do sales, how to, learn those stuff. But they never touch engineering or like technical aspects because they have no idea, right? And they're not built for it. So it took us so many months and even years to figure out what to do. We actually we said, okay, so this is the workflow we want to build. The first thing is to understand how we can actually measure the vaginal canal, because there's nothing to measure. So we started by developing a device that can measure the vaginal canal. We started with that, worked on it for a really long time. And then we got to yeah.
What's going on?
I think it's an Amber
Montreal.
Alert.
I know.
Probably in Ontario, because I didn't get one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was I
I
saying?
hope it's not targeted to me.
Hopefully we'll see. You ran out of Ontario, I guess.
Yeah. We'll see if cops are outside.
Yeah, of course. So, so we didn't have an idea. So we worked on the device that is able to actually it was supposed to kind of is scanning the vaginal canal from inside.
Yeah.
And then we actually tested it in cadavers.
Oh.
Yeah. So we actually had we were
How
lucky
did you get
to have
access to?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. Our supervisor actually became one of our founding team, which was really great because he found the idea really exciting. And he's a urogynecologist here in Montreal.
Is he involved or
he
is
is actually
advisor?
No, right now he is involved.
Okay.
And then we started everything, and then he kind of talked to his hospital, and then we got access. And maybe it's a detail thing to say, but it's usually cadavers because of the formaldehyde that they actually put on the cadavers for it not to rot. It smells so bad, but all the tissues will become stiff. So those that are aside for research purposes to have this problem, and we couldn't test in something that is a stiff because the vaginal canal characteristics is not like that at all. So we had to have access to fresh cadavers, right? So that's that. We were lucky that one of the hospitals here in Montreal had that access, and we could negotiate going to do this test as part of another test that was going on. So we tested it. And it was really cool. But then COVID happened, all the access, all our access to all the hospitals ceased.
Right.
And then it made us pivot a little bit to more software, kind of talking to people. It was actually good because the more we talked with urogynecologists and doctors, the more we understood they are really reluctant to adapt to new technologies like that and change their standard of care. So what happened is that we ditched that completely, after 2 years of working on it. Well, I would say part-time because we were still students. And then after that, we actually tried to be more focused. So it took us 2 years to actually understand where we should focus. Because each step of the whole workflow that we wanted to fill in, those gaps, all of them were not fulfilled. So we wanted to do a better pessary, but there wasn't a good pessary already, or we had no measurement. So we had to actually take a step in all those sections and all those steps to be able to actually go to the next step and provide something that is helpful, right? But what happened is made us think what can be done. So that actually made us work on a very simple mechanical tool that doctors can use, and that doesn't make them and doesn't force them to change their practice and change the standard of care they're doing right now, but still be able to get some missing measurements from what they're already doing. And then beside that, we got a couple of years working on the R&D that we had to do actually to understand what's actually the problem.
Makes sense.
Because first we thought it's just the shape of the vaginal canal. Then we understood, it's not like an ear that you actually get the shape, you scan the shape and you find the perfect fit and that's it. It changes through movements, through different activities. So our problem changed completely after working on it for so long. And we understood now we should actually shift to focus on something that can adapt to patient's body, So yeah, that's basically how we did it. And then we were like, okay, so let's do this. What's the best, how is the best manufacturing method? Is 3D printing, and we can actually have it in-house. So we started doing it, and we started 3D printing during this past 4 years. We actually started being full-time on the business since 2021. So it's about, I guess, 3 years, and it's becoming 4 years now. But yeah, it actually, like, the 3D printing technology has changed so much.
That's true. Yeah.
It absolutely changed everything. Like, we started from like how we can actually print silicone. We couldn't. But now we have a material that we are 3D printing with, which is 80% silicone, direct printing, no molding required. So you won't have anything to store, and then or break something to take the mold out. So this is how it works. Is usually you print a mold, and then you try to cast it with silicone. So you cast it with silicone, and then you leave it, and then when it's kind of cured, you take it out of the mold. So it's either you break the mold or you can open the mold because of the structure.
It's more like layering based technique.
Yeah.
It's more like a thread.
Yeah, it's called
plastic.
So it's basically it's called SLA printing.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're familiar with Formlabs printers. They're a little bit different than FDMs,
I
which
watched
is
some
the
Netflix
layers.
documentary. Yeah.
Nice. So for example, we have an FDM 3D printer, which is it's called a Prusa. So it actually is the layered one. It actually goes like it can work with biomedical, plastics or like TPU, TP, etc. But on the Formlabs, you actually have a resin, and it actually cures when it comes out. It like there's a resin that starts the curing layer by layer. So as it comes out, you can actually see the shape, and it can be really flexible materials.
And do you see in the future you will bioprint this?
That's a great
to
question.
Reduce rejection? Yeah.
We actually wanted to do that. It's really expensive at the moment.
Right.
What we are actually trying to do is not that 3D printing is not scalable. Doing personalized per person, we found out, like, we knew it, but we just, like, in order to actually make it accessible to everybody, that's not the accurate solution, right? Because when you 3D print, the cost is too much. You absolutely have to go to a doctor to take all specific measurements for you, right? So our vision for this product from the beginning was how we can actually get data so we can make a more generalized yet way more effective.
So data about
pastry.
like change in shape, data about what?
Yeah, so data about how general we can be from patient to patient.
Yeah.
And we actually got that answer way sooner than we expected. So we expected going to the market, being there in about a year to understand all the measurements and how we can actually be generalizing the whole model. But we actually, after studying a lot of available data, having a couple of in-human testing, we understood there can be, like, let's say 8 to 10 sizes that we can actually fit 95% of women with,
right?
Which is actually great. And why I'm saying this is that it actually is able to become way more accessible to people around the world, right? Especially those who don't even have access to a gynecologist, right? It could be a game changer for them. So we are looking into how we can change the material in a way that is more accessible, to do with other, manufacturing methods that we can explore. But that's the main reason we didn't want to go into the bio printing realm.
Sense. So this is more precision medical
Medicine,
device,
yeah.
not personalized medical device.
Well,
right?
I can't say that. Yeah, I would say that.
So yeah, because personalized will be patient specific.
Well, right now it is, right?
Right.
But our goal is to
scale the operation,
Exactly.
you need to be suitable to population.
Exactly.
Makes sense. So we talked about how you build the technology. What is the market? How do you build that medical device? Then how do you test it out? How do you market it? How do you think about business model or regulatory approval?
Yeah. That's a really long way.
Like high level. So
No, for sure. But medical device. So if somebody wants to start a medical device company, they should know that it's a really long process. So it's not like a like, I would say, like an application, or if you want to do like a software application, you can actually make a demo, make a really small minimum viable product quite quickly. You can show it to investors, you can show it to others, and kind of they can have a grasp of what's actually happening there, right? In the medical device realm, you have to start small. You have to build small steps, right? And when you do it, it takes a long time for you to get to an MVP or minimum viable product, because it takes money, it takes time. And the good part is that the medical device investors know that that's what is happening, right? So it usually, for a medical device, takes somewhere between like 3 to like 6 years for you to just build your product and then be able to actually go to the market, right? So you have to have that mentality of like, this is how long it's going to take, even for a simple product to get into the market, right? So that's the first step. You do the minimum viable product, you bring it to investors. So main thing I would say, bootstrapping is the best that you can do to stretch your money, right? Because it's easy to just give your company to investors. It's really easy in the medical device industry, because they know that you won't have revenue and they will eat you up as much as they can early on. So as much as you can bootstrap, like as long as you can bootstrap, that's the best. And then when it comes to actually investing, going to fundraise for the first round of financing, it's better to have like your minimum viable product, a couple of kind of results of how exactly it's being done. It depends on the regulatory of the device. So as an example, we are a class 2 medical device, which means that our device enters a cavity in the body and stays there for more than 30 days. So that's how and why our medical device is classified.
It's more like
as
any other implant.
Right. It depends, like, because if you can actually take it out less than 29 days, then it's a different, like these regulations are different from each other depending on how invasive they are, and mostly how risky, how high risk it can be to the patient, right? Like that's, like I say, enter the body and stays there for 30 days, but that's just like kind of the line that the FDA is drawing. But it doesn't mean that if you are like that, it necessarily you are class 2, you might be class 3 as well, right? Like, but that's a general, in a nutshell, the gist of it. So we are a class 2 medical device. The good news for us was that we are 510K, which means there has been a predicate device that we can rely on. So previous pessary, so predicate means that you had something similar that has passed this regulatory, and that's how you're relying on their results and how they did it to do your regulatory pathway. And what I mean by this is that each device, or each even like drug, it depends. Each device has its own pathway to get into the market and get the regulatory approval. Some will need animal testing. Some will need in-human testing. So some will need lab, like extensive lab testing, right? So how you do it is that you actually sort all of this out. And then you understand, for example, for us, it was not a de novo, because if it was a de novo, it meant that it's something new, completely new, and we had to like do everything from scratch. While we had a predicate, then, for example, if we see that the predicates have done biocompatibility testing, then we will propose that we will also do biocompatibility testing. It's more trivial, it's more straightforward, right? And then you do that. The good part is that you can actually prepare this report and then send it to FDA, and then ask for, it's called a pre-submission or Q-sub. They call it pre-sub or Q-sub. That is that they will actually go through all your documents that you prepared, and then they will get back to you with a meeting and a response and a feedback that they will agree to this pathway for you. Because you never want to go to biocompatibility testing for your test without de-risking it, without making sure that FDA will approve what you're doing, or go to a clinical trial, do everything that you can, spend tons of money, and then at the end, FDA does not approve your device. That's the worst case scenario, right? So that's the FDA way to give you their feedback way in advance.
Is US FDA?
Yes, US FDA. For Canada, it's Health Canada. We did we are doing FDA because our first market as well again will be US because it has 10 times the population is 10 times more there and compare with Canada. But Health Canada, then if we get when the FDA approves Health Canada, it's kind of easier to get as well.
Who helps you prepare on the filing or preparing for the meetings with FDA? You have regulatory person?
Exactly. So you absolutely have to either have someone in-house as a regulatory advisor who have done this before, or you should outsource. Startups usually outsource because that makes more sense. Why you should pay someone that you just need for a really small amount of time, like a short period of time. So we work with a regulatory advisor. Actually, they are based in Toronto. So we worked with them. They actually prepared everything for us. And that's, to be honest, that's the ballpark of the, that's a driving cost for the whole thing.
Right.
FDA is not charging you for the Q-Sub.
That's awesome.
That's
and FDA
great.
gives their time for free?
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Wow, okay.
Most expensive part is the regulatory advisor you get because you absolutely have to make sure that they know what they're doing.
You don't want to talk about weather in those calls,
Yeah, no, of course. And
no, I'm joking because lawyers charge based on their hours.
They do.
Yeah, so I always try not to talk about weather. Yeah.
That's a good advice, actually. It's similar with regulatory advisors as well. Now that I'm thinking, because you don't want to know how of a bad experience we had with our first regulatory advisor and our first lawyers.
Yeah.
So they were all actually charging for coming on a call, just talking about weather. And we were like, are you sure that we need 3 lawyers on the call about this? And and then they were charging 3 lawyers fees, right?
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, it helps if you show up in this call like a geeky person. You're like, I don't talk much. Just
that's great.
Talk about the technology.
Yeah, really. Yeah, you should. Probably we should do the same.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's and one advice for startups, if they're small, I guess, lesson learned, smaller companies work best with the startups rather than big ones because they don't really care, like the money that they will, generate from working with you and helping you, regulatory advisors that are really big companies, it's not much, right? And you're not going to continue working for them for long. You might not, and they can't wait till you're really big. So it's not a good investment for them. So they don't really give you the attention that you necessarily need.
Right.
And why I'm saying that is that FDA, on the other hand, will be way more strict with startups or smaller companies that are doing this for the first time in compared to bigger companies such as, for example, in our example, Medtronic or Cooper Surgical, they're not going to be as strict to them because they know they've done this before. While it's not I don't think that's a good thing to do. It's not best practice not to be strict enough. But for startups, it's got to be really strict. So it really matters what you propose and how you propose it. Because FDA is not like you go and you ask a question. Like you can't show up in a meeting or like in your proposal say, what do you think I should do? Or what is the solution to this problem? You should prepare and propose something that you will do. I'm planning to do animal studies. I'm planning to do cadaver testing. I'm planning to do benchtop testing. Because of this and this and that, based on this predicate, does FDA agree? And then they just say yes or no. And then if they say no, they would give you a little bit feedback beforehand. And then when you go on a call with them, they actually start talking about their feedback, and then you will get the time to prepare based on the feedback you got from them before, right?
Yeah.
So you get prepared and then you go there and you talk with them, and then the good thing, another best practice is to actually, if you're a technical person or like a business person, try to absolutely have your key opinion leaders with you, which is something you absolutely should have, surgeons, doctors, who are in the business, they know how exactly it works, and they can actually answer to the agent's questions, right? The examiner is the person who will actually decide if they want to pass you through or not, right? So it's really important to have all of those members on the call.
So that's legal side. And there's extra layer of challenges when you do a bio company, right? Because beneficiary are always human. So there's safety data, efficacy data,
Absolutely.
Regulatory approval, and you cannot generate revenue for so long.
Yep.
Is there a way to create like a hybrid company? Because, for example, biotech company working on drug candidates,
Right.
they find a way to generate revenue while building a drug. Let's say if their technique is specific to more proteomics technique, they start offering this as a contract research. So in more medical device business, do you see the hybrid approach of generating revenue while building the tech? Because that can take very long.
Yeah, I understand. I actually had another fellow founders that was working on a wearable device that actually was selling it to research centers. For us, it's a little bit different. I don't see that being the case for us. We actually signed, so in terms of marketing, we actually signed pilots with hospitals that were really interested in this. The good part for us was that whoever we reached out to, doctors, hospitals, there wasn't even one person that said, I'm not interested, which is like, for us, it's great, but poor women, like there hasn't been any changes in those devices since 60 years ago, right? So it's, all the doctors really need a new innovative solution for the pelvic organ prolapse, or like how they are doing things, right? Because it's not working, right? So we actually do have those pilots, and that's how we are actually getting into the market as well.
Okay.
Like talking to doctors, because we are a B2B2C business. So how we are planning to get in is to getting on those pilots, and they are paid pilots, which is great, right? So that's part of that revenue generation that you mentioned. But as a like working with universities or like research centers, that's something that we are not actually doing, and
Makes
I don't
sense.
see
If
it happening.
do you expect to get some fast track or orphan status for this product?
No, not really. We actually tried to look at it for the fast track, but there had been some roadblocks there, and then actually our regulatory advisor advised us against it. So yeah.
How big is this problem? Like how many people?
So 1 in 3 women.
1 in 3 women?
It's really common.
In North America?
And all the stats that I'm saying, it's in North America, but it's actually around the world as well.
Right.
It's not really different around the world. 1 in 3 women, and then 1 in every 2 over the age of 80. Because the muscles and ligaments, and 2 things that can actually make it not worsen, but like generally can be the catalyzing all of this and accelerated is vaginal childbirth. The more vaginal childbirth you have, you'll get more prone to have pelvic organ prolapse or urinary incontinence, because generally muscles tends to get weaker with this, or ligaments tend to get weaker, or elongated,
Right.
Or by natural aging process, right? Because generally when you get older, especially after menopause for women, what happens is that muscles lose their strength, and then ligaments will lose the strength as well. And the unfortunate thing is what you see is not like after childbirth, you will expect doctors talk about how you can prevent this problem from happening, right? Because there are like Kegel exercises. You can actually work on your pelvic muscles, right? But we don't see that happening at all. And to be honest with you, I thought that maybe in developing countries like my country, that's the way it is because it's a taboo. But here, nobody talks about it.
Right.
And I saw how you got shocked about like that 1 in 3 stat. It's because women are not talking about it. Like after getting into this, we then realized many of our family members had it and they never talked about it. We had no idea what this problem is, right? And then when we started working on it, all of a sudden everybody had it, and we were shocked of like, because and then when we asked people, even our patients now, when we ask, they say that they are kind of embarrassed to talk about their private parts, quote unquote, right? Or generally they're embarrassed to say, for example, when I cough, I pee a little bit, right? That's embarrassing, generally, generally speaking, right? And we completely understand. But if you don't talk about it, then there's no solution for it, right?
Right.
So that's basically how common it is. And
So why it's not a priority or urgency? Like, what do you
For-
think is the reason behind?
you mean for healthcare providers generally, or
Yeah, like in
medtech?
general. For example, we all know a man has problem of prostate cancer as soon as they hit 40 or 50.
Right.
So there's like a proper checkup
Right.
process. So if this problem is like that common, then why this is not like a norm in terms of testing and awareness?
I mean, I can guess a couple of, factors that had, I think, had an impact on this. First, as I just said, women don't really talk about their private parts, but generally, like right now with this new generation, and generally with the awareness being like, increased in social media and like
TikTok.
Yeah. TikTok, really. You can see even older women tend to talk more now, about their issues. But previously, women are, every time they want to talk about something, at least I had this feeling, while I didn't, maybe I didn't encounter that much of it, but every time I want to talk about a problem I have, I feel everybody will think that I'm exaggerating or like, maybe it's not as bad, right? But they don't talk about it at all. And you can't even imagine someone is walking with something between their legs and they can't even hold their urine and they're not talking about it at all, right?
And this condition is called?
Pelvic organ prolapse. Yeah. That causes urinary incontinence or even fecal incontinence, right? Like those are the symptoms around it. So first, women are not talking about it. So others cannot really find a solution for it if you're not talking about it. And an interesting thing that when you actually mentioned the prostate cancer, right now, the money that has been invested into prostate health has been in North America, 47.3, if I'm not mistaken, billion dollars, while like just prostate health, while on whole female pelvic health, like everything, not just uterus, not just vaginal canal, not just bladder, not like all the female pelvic health has been 13
$13 billion a year
versus 47, which is a huge gap. But the reason for this gap, I think, first, they're not talking. The second thing, as a result of that, companies are not prioritizing it at all. I know because one of my colleagues was in one of the biggest medical device manufacturers, and I don't want to name it, but they said when we get some fundings, gynecology is the last priority on our list. And we never even like think about it because we think there's no market for it. But I think what can be done is there's no market because we never actually paid attention to it either. If I want to give you an example, I don't know if you know it or not, but females were not part of any clinical trials until 1993. So it's like 31 years, right? So it's quite recent, and you don't know what's happening in their bodies. In Iran, going back, like right now, because it's a Muslim country now, doctors will never get to test on female cadavers. Like you can't. As a religious, right? You can't. So I'm like, how are you supposed to know what's happening, right? Another thing, I was actually I had a talk in Virginia with a couple of other university professors in biomedical engineering on female health. And when we were talking, one of the professors from University of Oregon was telling me, you know what, even now, you might think everything is figured out, but we don't know how to model the inside of a female ovaries in our analysis.
Model like in silico?
In silico, yes. Well, no, not just in silico and like in vivo, in vitro. In vivo, no, but because it's in patients, but like in vitro and in silico. Both, they don't really know how to do it.
Looks like we need some awareness. No?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to say as well. But on the other hand, she was saying that what they are doing, because like whatever they are developing, they work on medical devices, they work on drugs, they work on like generally solutions for women health. And she was telling me how even her lab is focused on testing on male animals and not females at all. And I asked why, and she was like, because it's more controlled, right? Like female animals will have a lot of hormonal cycle ups and downs, so you don't know if this drug is actually working or is it because of the hormonal changes, right? Makes sense as a scientific approach, right?
To reduce variables.
Exactly. It reduces variables. So it makes sense, but whatever that you find out, you should know that you can't, like, you don't have a definite answer for 50% of the population, right? So I figure something about it. She was actually figuring out how they can do this on female animals, even if the thesis of their students will take longer than expected, but at least they have a conclusive result, right? So I think that is also part of it. But I think if they, these are general factors that I think are playing a role. But I think if these companies that think that they are not enough market there, if we try to focus more or like create that opportunities for even researchers to start thinking about female health, especially pelvic health, or generally what's happening inside a woman beside fertility, which is the focus of everybody in this at this time, we'll create that opportunity for researchers that can lead to a way bigger opportunity in terms of market. So companies also get incentivized for funding that. Yeah,
I think it's a good segue to like starting a business is very painful, challenging,
absolutely.
Right? Whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. It is painful.
Absolutely.
But how is it? Is it different starting a business as a woman who immigrated from Iran? Like, do you want to share some of the thoughts, like about your journey, your perspective? If you feel like there are some unique challenges or unique perspective, or you want to share about?
Yeah, I can. I can do that. As a person who was grown up in a developing country, I thought everything is figured out in developed countries, you know, and I thought.
Looks like that from Hollywood.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, from the movies that we see. But I can admit the fights that we are fighting against in like Iran versus Canada, it's totally different. Like as a woman, I was an activist there because like what we were like, it was a bare minimum even, rights, especially in legal terms, right? But here it's a really different word in terms of like those parts, but it's still a lot of way to go, right? Especially in healthcare generally and entrepreneurship for sure. I can say absolutely my experience had been at least better. One interesting factor that I see is in Iran, I don't know, like there has been statistics that shows the more egalitarian a country is, less women in engineering it will have.
Yeah, it's true in Europe too. I think Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, exactly. I was hearing and I was like, is it true really? Everybody around me, like all females around me are engineers. We were all engineers.
Right.
So it wasn't as much of a taboo that is here than there, which was interesting to me.
Right.
But as an entrepreneur, I didn't expect to be, faced with challenges as much as we did here versus Iran.
Right.
Some of the challenges, like I'll talk about general challenge, but this one, like in terms of being a woman entrepreneur, it was one of our advisors that was. He was a little bit older than generally he was a little bit old, but he literally and directly sat us down and said, You know what? Women are not as good as men, like literally, as good as men in persuading others. And we're like, okay. And he was like, yeah, you have to accept it. Like it's a like if it's business, it's like there's more money for male, like your male counterparts. And Viver, to be honest, I was a little bit shocked to be like, nobody even directly tell this like to
Right.
you and Aron. But anyways, that was like one incident that somebody literally said that. And to be honest, you knew that he does not really believe in you, even if he wouldn't say. This was the one incident he literally said it.
Do you agree with that?
That
Yeah, that
what?
like the pursuing skills need more.
No.
Yeah, I was
I
shocked. Yeah.
absolutely am against it.
Yeah.
So he said that, and we were like, okay, whatever. After these years, we saw him just I think a couple of months ago, and he was like, he didn't remember that he said that to us,
Yeah.
right? But he was like, oh wow, I'm so proud of you guys. I didn't think you would make it, and we were like,
Oh boy. Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
You know, but was it easy? No. Was it demotivating? Absolutely, right? Like
Right.
somebody tells you in your face, but even if they don't do it, sometimes you feel it. To be honest with you, I haven't experienced it that much.
Right.
Like that was one incident. And generally I'm not looking for it either, because I don't see myself as a woman that is
Right.
different than men in things. It's like
Right.
different people have different skills. Either I can do something or I can't, you know. Some people can, some people cannot, right?
Right.
So and I was like, that was the first time and the only time that I felt that somebody is telling me you as a woman cannot do certain things.
So weird.
It was
Yeah.
so weird,
Right.
especially hearing it in here, you know, in Canada. But could it be demotivating? Absolutely, it was, right? But we didn't care, and we never gave up. And they will even forget that they said that, right?
Right.
But that mentality, it's a little bit challenging for you, right? So when you go somewhere, especially funding perspective, investment,
Right.
when you go pitch to people, you sometimes feel that they think that you might not be able to pull it off, or generally that, you know, unconscious bias that they don't even want to have it, but
Right.
like inside they have this feeling of maybe it's better
Right.
to invest my money somewhere else, or not much funding for like women generally. But when you do, and then it pulls off, and you're so happy, right? Like we've seen this so
Right.
many times with my fellow founders that are female entrepreneurs, and their investors are really happy, and now they're investing more in women, you know,
Right.
unconsciously,
Right.
because they've seen this.
Yeah. I mean, there's some data that supports like women founders are doing better. So yeah, but investors, when you talk to them, they're always judging.
They are
Whether you're
right.
man or woman.
I'm sure you have all the experiences.
Yeah, when you
are
speak
true.
with them, you start questioning yourself.
Yourself for sure.
Am I that bad? Yeah.
I actually wanted to say that.
Yeah.
It's not women versus men. It's like generally some investors are really intimidating. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
You as a founder, you always question yourself, am I doing it wrong? You know? And or like, will I ever be successful? You never know that, right?
Right.
Like living with that uncertainty is the worst part of it, right?
Oh, totally.
The thing is, you have to do that inner talk with yourself of like,
Yeah.
you can do this, like be confident in yourself, or at least gamble on yourself, right?
Right.
If there's something that I have to gamble on, it's me, right?
Yeah.
So even if like it might fail,
Yeah.
even us, right?
Right.
Like it doesn't matter. It might
Right.
fail whenever.
Oh, we will not fail. But yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No, I think raising funds, I remember after YC Demo Day, speaking with VCs,
Right.
what I realized is you have to be open to embarrass yourself.
Exactly.
You just show up and they will say 10 things. One of them are probably right. If multiple people say that, you keep working on it, you embarrass yourself, and someone will bet on you,
Yep.
right? You only need one group to bet on you.
Completely agree.
But yeah, I think fundraising is very painful, and different VCs have their own biases, like
Absolutely.
you said. Against it can be based on gender, race, or accents. Or,
No, of course, and it's understandable in
Right.
some cases, but generally that's like a challenge, anyways, right? That you have to overcome.
Yeah, and I think you have to create new norms.
Yeah,
Right. So
absolutely agree.
60s there were different norms, and if you're mad about something, you just you have to work 10x harder. Some cases, if you are not the part of like what people think are successful founders,
Yep.
you just have to work harder and longer.
Yep.
If you stick around long enough,
You'll make it.
you make it. Yeah.
Of course, I totally agree with that. And I absolutely think you will, like the example that I said, like even there is a chance that we fail as well,
Right.
but we'll not take that chance, right? Like, I mean, there is always a path in the world where your startup, my startup will fail, but do we go that route? No, like we pivot, we go as far as we go until we try to make it, right?
Right.
And I think that's a mentality to have as well.
Totally.
It's something that you have to work within yourself to build, right? Like that confidence. Like even investors, first we thought it's because of your technology that they invest in you.
Right.
First we thought it's because what you're doing is they just invest because they like it. Like sometimes, like one day they wake up happy and they're like, oh, I'm gonna invest in whoever comes first.
I like this founder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Let's invest.
Yeah.
Really. Like, especially their friends. If they are also like investors, as soon as they invest, they will call and say, oh, I invested in this company. They don't even want to hear. They
that's
will
so weird.
not do due diligence. And we're like, what happened? We got
Yeah.
money. We got money from 3 angels in one day without even trying. And we're like, what happened? And we were still in due diligence for 6 months
Yeah.
with an angel investor in Quebec, like with it was like an institutional fund.
Yeah.
And we didn't hear back, and we're like, what happened in one day? Everything just changed just because of that.
It's I think the social proof, you see the impact of it in VC community.
Right.
They basically they want to invest if other investors are fighting for it.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely. You have to create that FOMO.
You have to create that FOMO. Without FOMO, it's irrespective of how good your tech is, how much market traction you have, they will always find something.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? You will say, oh, you have these customers. Maybe your product is not scalable enough. Right?
You know what we heard in the beginning when we were fundraising? You're too early. You're too early. And we were like, okay, yeah, we are too early.
It basically
it's a medical
means
device.
I don't like you.
Exactly. Exactly. And then the more we talk to investors, we realize that's just an excuse. They're not... They don't really mean you're early, because what else can I do at this stage, right? Like I need money to go to the next stage. And this, especially when you're early stage, like at the earliest stage of your first time founding something, you will be like, oh, absolutely, I am early stage. What am I supposed to do? I had to have everything figured out. I shouldn't have started this. I should have known better, But the fact is that you need money to take it to the next level. And you don't know it before you do it, actually. Like before you have that experience of founding a business, you would never know. Like that's it. You need money. You have to just persuade, you have to be persuasive. And you need to actually sell your idea and how well you can actually execute it to everybody, to employees you want to hire, to other people you want to get connected with, to investors. It's not just investors, right? But as soon as you do that and they invest in you, right? They're like, I know you can pull this off. If you don't pull this off, you will pull something else off. Yeah. That's why I invest, right? So that really, you have to understand that what they say is not necessarily what it's what your problem is, you know?
Sometimes I think you need like unrealistic confidence, unrealistic optimism.
Absolutely.
Otherwise,
I agree with you.
If you take everyone's feedback seriously, you will just close the shop.
For sure. No, really. Even investors might give you controversial opinions, right? We were in this whirlwind of like going back and forth with different feedbacks we got from different investors, because the best practice is you ask why you pass on us, right? And then these people give you controversial advice on how to pitch even, and you someday you find yourself in like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what is like how am I supposed to start with my vision in my pitch
Yeah.
and start with a team in my pitch, team slide in my pitch. And like they have all the good reasons behind why they think you should do it this way.
Right.
But it's at the end of the day, if you don't pick your battle and choose what is best for you, you will just get confused. And at the end of the day, you can't do any of it, right?
It's weird. You start questioning yourself.
Absolutely.
Is it because how I look? Is it because how I sound?
Yeah.
Is it because they just don't like me? Yes. Is it because I don't smile enough? Yes.
Yeah. No, really.
It's,
I can completely, totally relate. Especially like you're like, maybe is it my accent I don't like?
Right.
Is it like because I'm not like from here? Is it because I don't present well? Maybe I didn't look good today. Like everything. You start questioning everything.
Right.
And,
but I think that's what makes you stronger. Right. So if you find a way to stick around, because it's a war, you're fighting, right? Every day you're
every
fighting.
day, absolutely.
So if you stick around and you emerge victorious, you are stronger. So it's not I think it's worth it.
For sure, absolutely.
Starting a business is worth it. I always, even when I'm interviewing people, I ask them sometimes, you want to start a business? If they say, no, I just want to work, sometimes I don't like it.
Okay.
I'm like, all of us should want to at some point, but I understand it's a very painful.
It is, and it's really
journey.
Quite stressful as well.
Yes.
Not everybody can take it as well. And I don't mean it in a bad way.
Yeah,
it's just people are made differently.
Right.
And
we have to respect that.
Exactly, absolutely. And then you kind of, there is a point in everybody's life that you realize what resonates with you, what are you better at, or even when do you want to have that adrenaline release.
That's true.
Every day versus there's a time that you want to settle down and it's like, that's enough for me,
Right.
So preferences and like personalities, they all dictate how you would, like what you would want in every step.
Right.
But I completely am on the same page with you. Sometimes I'm like, you don't you want to feel this way of like building something or like do it for your own, goals and like, passions, So I get it completely.
But I think it's also an acquired taste in a way, right? You start out of excitement.
Right.
Then you realize, oh boy, I didn't
It wasn't
realize.
as easy as I thought. Yeah.
You thought you will be famous overnight, right? And then you have to, it's like going to gym, right? You get excited, I'm going to build more muscle mass.
Yeah.
But you go there, you're like, it's painful, right? But if you go there long enough, consistently, you start enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you cross that initial challenges, then it becomes your identity.
Right.
And if you stick around, then you...
then you can't do anything else.
Oh, you're super human in a way. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, we will do quick, what do you call it? Like rapid fire.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
And then wrap it up.
Okay, sure.
Sounds good.
Of course.
We're already over time. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Alrighty. Rapid fire, so something quick. 30 seconds.
I'm not good at that.
If you could give your 25-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Love it. Love it. If you had to bet your entire career on one trend in medtech, biotech, what would it be?
Personalized medicine using AI.
You expect like robots making drugs specific to each patient based on their
Not
gene
really.
profile?
No,
Okay.
not robots. What? Personalized. I think it's going to be huge. I think it's going to be huge because especially for women, because it's not that their hormonal cycle. It's even different each person to each person. So I think it's going to be huge especially for women.
No, makes sense. Even in the drug industry, I feel like we think diabetes is one disease.
Right.
But diabetes is 10,000 different diseases in different patient population,
Right.
and different patients with...
It's really complex. Like generally,
know.
those are really special. Endometriosis in women. Like it's
Yeah.
quite common. Nobody knows what's happening. No treatment. So I think that's something that we'll find a solution for as well.
Love it. What one thing you do every day to stay inspired? Because it's easy to get stressed and demotivated when you are fighting so many battles.
I try to do like sit and kind of do mindfulness.
Meditation.
Yeah, and talk to myself all the time.
Love it. Love it.
Try to self-motivate myself all the time.
Yeah, I think you have to hype yourself sometimes.
Nobody will do that for you, for sure.
Yeah.
We used to do a 15 minutes exercise with our employees in the office as well. That really helped all of our all of our motivations.
Love it. It's something related in a way. Is entrepreneurship a skill or a mindset?
A skill or a mindset?
Yeah,
It's a mindset.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I see super talented people not doing so well sometimes.
Yep. Same.
Yeah, and sometimes you see people who are average.
And doing so well.
Yeah, it's a mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much, Negin.
Thank
Really
you so
appreciate
much for
it.
having
Yeah.
me. It was a really fun
Really
talk.
enjoyed it, yeah.
Likewise.